Gareth A. Davis, how are we, sir?
I'm very well. We're recording very early in the morning, which is always an
Very early.
interesting one because we don't know what's going to happen when we're together so early. I'm very well. Went up to Manchester at the last week for 2 or 3 days to see the whole Chisora bandwagon. He threatened to shave my head off. I don't know if you saw that, but
I did. You're taking calls at a press conference. The disrespect,
do you
the
know the truth?
disrespect towards Chisora.
The truth is, my phone, it wasn't my phone ringing. But there we go. He needed something to bounce off. And I happened to be looking at his record at the time, an incredible record it is. So that was fun and games with Derek Chisora last week. And that's really all I've been doing since I saw you. And kind of sitting and watching the announcement yesterday. I did a load of recordings for William Hill yesterday ahead of February the 22nd. Meetings and plannings for that event as well with the Telegraph. And I just finished off a big cover story for the Ring magazine on Ben versus Eubank.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that one coming up, April 26th. So not long to go for that one, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Before we discuss old Ward Chisora, and as you say, that incredible record of names that he's got. I mean, you can reel off sort of a few all-time greats on his resume. A quick word on Otto Wallin. I said at the top, a very, very poor Otto Wallin, but you were there ringside, so you would have a bit more better insight to his performance than I did watching it at home. What did you make of Otto?
Well, Derek Chisora didn't let him... live... I scored it 3 rounds each up to the 6th round. I know a lot of people saw it incredibly wide for Derek on TV. Yeah. Chisora had a good first three rounds. Wallin had a good second 3 rounds up to the 6th. And then it looked like Derek's eye was going to stop the fight from ringside. There was a feeling that the cut on his right eye was very bad. And I think Wallin lacks power, and I think it helps Derek, and it helped Derek on the night. I think he was absolutely shocked to be, so were we all, by the way, in the 9th round when he got pistoned all the way across the ring. His legs went in a delayed reaction. I mean, it was one of the weirdest. I mean, he literally traversed from one corner to the other, the opposing corners, on his back heels, didn't he? And then I just think he ran out of ideas against Derek, and Derek's ebullience and persistence and irresistibility just won the day, and the knockout at the end, knockdown at the end, just typified the fight. Yeah, you can say he was disappointing, but you could say that Derek was brilliant, and I prefer the latter.
Yeah, no. I agree. The latter sounds a lot better. And the ring didn't help as well, wasn't it? It was a small one. It looked like it was 18 by 18. And if you're Otto Wallin, who likes to move around, likes to fight on the back foot, 18 by 18 when you have a ball in front of you, it is going to be a bit of a difficult proposition.
Yeah, and I think 6 rounds in, you didn't realise it was going to be such a one-sided fight. And Derek was inspired. I don't care what anyone says. Derek was inspired in there. I'm not of the view that should it be Anthony Joshua, should it be Daniel Dubois, should it be Alexander Usyk? I think all of them give him a very, very hard time. He'll be peppered, and the first 2 will hurt him. I may be wrong, but I think they'll hurt him. I don't like the idea of him stepping in against them. I think what they're doing is they're wishing it into existence against Alexander Usyk. That's 5 years ago that he fought him and gave him a hard time. That was a 36-year-old Derek Chisora. I don't see him doing it now, and I see Usyk dismantling him. I don't want him to win a world title. I haven't agreed on this, but he tried to get me to say in the week, and Derek was great fun, that if he wins a world title, he's going to shave my head off. Can he shave my head off? I haven't agreed to it. Spencer Oliver was trying to get me. Well, Spencer Oliver agreed for me weirdly. I'm not allowing them to shave my head off. I don't want to shave my head off. You know what it feels like, but I don't know what it feels like. Then it was mocked up on Twitter on with AI or graphically. Listen. In all seriousness, I don't think he will fight for a world title. This was an eliminator for an eliminator, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because Joseph Parker and Daniel Dubois will fight for the IBF title anyway, or Parker will fight for Dubois, and I think the winner of that will fight Alexander Usyk. There's loads of opponents out there for Derek Chisora. Maybe the winner of Dillian White and Joe Joyce, maybe Deontay Wilder, and if it's in Africa, maybe Francis Ngannou. I think we've kind of been over this before, but that's my feeling about Derek. It was an incredible performance. It felt like it should be the last one. He came in looking like the Lone Ranger, Clint Eastwood, in the cape, in the leather poncho, with the hat on, the bandana. He stripped afterwards, as again Spence was pointing out. He was just so claustrophobic in there for him at the end because he gave everything. It felt like the perfect moment, Addy. Front row there with the Warrens, Francis, George, and Frank. And all the guys there, Coley, Riakporhe, Lawrence Coley, Richard Riakporhe, Dillian White, Joe Joyce, Joe Cordina, Roberto Duran, 15,000 in the arena. It was an amazing atmosphere, singing War Chisora, oh, War Chisora. It felt like the perfect moment for him to walk away.
But we know, as you know, he won't. I felt like that many a time with Chisora. remember when he fought Kubrat Pulev, and I think he came out to Elvis Presley. I remember thinking, this is perfect. He walked to the ring with his children, and I thought, okay, this is it. He beat a good name in Kubrat Pulev, walk away, but he won't. Let's hear from Derek Chisora. He spoke to Spencer Oliver after, and this is what he had to say about his possible next opponent.
I think I deserve a blockbuster.
Oh, I believe you do, mate.
Guess what? We're going back to London. I'll sell out Tottenham. So by end of this year, I'm going to do Tottenham.
Give me a name.
I'm going to phone Alexander and see if we're going to do it.
Alexander Usyk.
Alexander Usyk, yeah.
If that doesn't materialise, Del, who would be your number 2 choice?
Why do you want to fight him again for?
I think I won that fight.
Do away of any heavyweight in this country. Whether you've lost 13 or 14.
You want me to fight Anthony?
Down to me, is it? It's not down to me.
You know what? We'll see what happens. I see AJ will be fighting end of the year. So right now, we'll see.
Would you put that friendship aside, Del, and go in there with AJ to give the British fans that fight?
Yeah, why not? Why not? I'll speak to him first.
Derek Chisora there, hinting at a fight in London. Again, mentions the names of Usyk, AJ, etc. This completely goes against The Last Dance. I thought the idea of The Last Dance was the last fight in the UK. Or is he now saying it's the last fight in Manchester? I feel like we're going to get a lot of backward stepping here from Chisora. I honestly do. I actually think there could be one post 50. But yeah, look, we've gone over this last week, but just to kind of put a full stop on this, who do you think he fights, and what does make sense? Obviously, Dillian White takes on Joe Joyce April 5th. If Dillian White gets past that one, is it just inevitable that will be the trilogy, or is it leaning to Ngannou in Africa?
Well, we heard him say there, let me sell out Tottenham Hotspur. I don't think he does sell out Tottenham Hotspur anyway. He could be on the undercard, but he's not in a main event and sell out Tottenham Hotspur.
No.
I don't think he's going to be fighting for a world title. He's won an eliminator here, hasn't he?
Yeah, and just to be clear on this, obviously, as you mentioned, Parker challenges Dubois for the IBF. The final eliminator is Bakoli versus F.A. Jagbar. That's right. The final eliminator. So this is like, as you say, the eliminator for the eliminator. So I don't like this positioning and want for Chisora to challenge for a world title. If you are, then you've got to get past the winner of Bakoli and Jagbar.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. For me, hand on heart, I don't want to see him fight again. I really don't.
Same.
But the head, and which is what's thinking for him as well, in the kind of in the diaspora of victory and the adrenaline after the fight and the feelings he has and the glory he feels in himself, the warrior that he was again for one more night on that last dance. Who's the opponent? I could see there's Jarrell Miller, who was the original opponent. Jarrell Miller, Deontay Wilder, winner of Dillian White and Joe Joyce. I don't want to see him fight Joseph Parker if he loses to...
Yeah, we've seen him lose to Parker twice already.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the options. Dillian White again. But I don't want him to go in against anyone that's going to beat him up. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I guess the biggest issue for Chisora is he probably thinks, well, I'm winning and I just put 15,000 in the co-op. And he's probably thinking, why am I going out if I'm still winning? I'm only losing to the very best. His recent defeats have been to Fury, Usyk and Parker. I'm beating people who I should beat. Let me fight. I almost feel like we, the British public and the boxing fraternity, are putting pressure on him to retire when he still thinks, oh, 1 second, guys. I'm winning these fights. And I'm winning semi-comfortably. I can understand his argument for saying I want to continue.
He's a throwback. He's got better and fitter in his late 30s and early 40s than in his late 20s and early 30s.
Yeah.
He reminds me of those 70s fighters. They were different men. They were built differently. You know, the golden era in the 70s, you know, Foreman, Fraser, Ali, Holmes, Norton, these kind of guys who were different. They were different men. They were different 50 years ago. And he is like that. And he would have physically and mentally fitted into that era. He doesn't know the meaning of quit. The cells in his body don't know the meaning of quit. But the problem is, it's the things that are going to catch up with him in 10 or 15. He's not taking punches in these fights as well.
Yeah.
I'm saying all of this with an unending and endearing, grudging admiration for him that he wants to go on. Remember, I've been around him 20 years. I've covered his whole career. I've watched him become a folkloric figure. We used to be careful around him because he was violent and volatile and belligerent. And now he knows how to play the game. He's a master entertainer. I just don't want to see him take any more punches. But what he's looking at is his bank balance, his young children, his big house in Hampstead, the future for his family, the fact that he knows he can do this, feels all right a week after the fight and can go on again. And that's the situation he's in. But 50 fights, Derek's 50 fights deep in the heavyweight division, and he has to take punishment to get on the inside. It was a fine performance on Saturday night, one of his very best, in all honesty. And Wallin was top 12 in the world, only lost to Fury and Joshua. Having said that, he doesn't have a massive resume. He hasn't got the resume that Derek has got. So, you know, we're trying to talk him into retirement here, but, you know, it's like if your favourite uncle is still smoking in his 50s and 60s and he's got cancer. This is a bad comparison. I'm not going to...
No, I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean, though. He's going to continue.
He's going to continue.
He's going to continue smoking. Yeah,
and having his bottle of whiskey a day or whatever. Or
he's going to continue because you know what? He enjoys it.
And that's him.
He enjoys it.
He might live on for 100, you know?
Yeah. He enjoys it and that's him. Look, Chisora's going to have that 50th. I just wonder which one, as you mentioned, which one brings in the most revenue. And I just can't put my mind away from him versus Ngannou in Africa. I just feel like that could be the one.
It doesn't sell though, Addy. It doesn't. Where does it
sell? No. I don't know. I'm not quite sure of Cameroon or I'm not quite sure of the landscape there. Maybe a fight in Zimbabwe where Derek Chisora has always said he would like to go back and fight. Obviously, that's where he was born. So maybe something there. Maybe a co-main. Who knows for AJ Bacoli? Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe something in that.
Yeah.
Something in that. But he will continue and he will have another knock. We'll see how it plays out. Very, very quickly, just to wrap on this one. Nathan Heaney lost. Obviously, look, former British middleweight champion, lost to a Frenchman, Kachi, who I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, French boxing right now is on this crest of a wave. And I thought, look, a lot of people were saying Nathan Heaney didn't look good. It's a bit like the Chisora Wallin. I actually thought his opponent looked very good.
He did.
Catty, apologies, thank you.
Sofiane Catty got drawn into a dogfight for 3 rounds with Nathan, who was trying to make it a roughhouse brawl, or at least didn't want it to be a boxing match, and he was winning that battle. But Catty came out, I think it was in the 4th round, in the first 22nd, used his footwork and said, "You know what, I'm going to dance here a little bit."
Yeah.
And he completely changed the pattern of the fight. You know, I think he'd lost 5, but he had barely had any knockouts on his records. He was 17-5, not a big puncher, but he had 5 fights last year. Yeah, but he looked clever in there, and Nathan was looking for a scrap, looking for a brawl. I mean, the walkout was amazing. It was like Freddie Mercury. It was like Freddie Mercury was singing himself into the ring. Nathan milked the entrance to Delilah, which the crowd loved. He got in there. The emotion was there and fulsome for him and from him. You know, he's mustachioed these days. But I think he's announced his retirement, hasn't he, yesterday?
He hasn't officially. He did put, as you say,
It looked like it.
Long on social media saying that he really needs to have a think about what he does from here. That he's had a good career, and it was almost a goodbye and thank you. But you know what fighters are like. They do that. They heal up, and then they fight again. It's just the way it is. They're built different.
He'll always be remembered for his victory over Denzel Bentley, which kind of extended him up to world's class in a way.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, the defeat to Brad Pauls, and you know, this was
the bad one.
He hurt in this one. He was bad.
Yeah, this was the bad one. The other ones have been, you know, just you're losing. It's fine. This one, he kind of got beat up in there, so I do think that one might. And it wasn't against, as you say, a named opponent or world ranked opponent. It was a guy that had lost 5 times, so you might want to consider what he does from here. All right, you're listening to Find Out Extra on talkSPORT 2. Still to come, we are going to unpack a bizarre week, and I mean bizarre week for Canelo, Turkey, Jake Paul, Terence Crawford. Will explain a bit more. But up next, we are going to look at a huge fight announced for Queensberry's DAZN debut in April. Welcome back. You're listening to Find Out Extra on talkSPORT 2. Ade Oladipo, Gareth A. Davis. Gareth was in Manchester on Saturday, obviously, for the Derek Chisora Swan Song, kind of. I was in Manchester yesterday for the announcement of Queensberry's first event on DAZN. It will take place April 5th at the same venue, the Co-op Live, that we saw Chisora fight Otto Wallin. And I thought it was an interesting card announcement. He announced 3 separate fight cards. Obviously, Kakachi versus Lee Wood, fantastic. Josh Taylor going up to 147 to take on Echo Usman, fantastic. And then he announced his heavyweight blockbuster card as well. Dillian White versus Joe Joyce. Lawrence Okoli, obviously now a heavyweight, taking on Richard Riakporhe, his heavyweight debut on that card as well. We got TKV will take on David Adeleye, and I believe Moses Italma will make an appearance on this card as well. So he's come out swinging immediately as Frank Warren.
That's
he's
a
almost
very
come
good
out
way
saying,
of putting it. Sorry.
He has, hasn't he? No. Go ahead. Perfect way. Go on. Go ahead. Floor's yours.
He really has come back swinging, and what an investiture into the DAZN platform. We was being teased up there last week and kept running into different figures there, and obviously many of them there on the night. And Anthony Yard sitting next to Frank Warren as well on the night. That was with the Warrens there, you know. I was wandering, I was meandering around the VIP seats with my mic for talkSPORT with my microphone, and I said to Anthony, you know, are you all pally? Or he said, we've always been friends. What that means is that there's probably work going on behind the scenes there in some way. But it was brilliant to see them all there ringside. Not least, I don't know if you know this, but we're mentioning all these names, but I had a sit-down interview with Roberto Duran, and I was doing simultaneous. I'm not bragging, but I'm a Spanish speaker, I think you know. And so I was doing simultaneous translation with Roberto Duran, and it went on for 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes. And he was saying he loves the atmosphere in the UK. He's up with Joe Gallagher training a couple of boxers at the moment. And he said if it had been today, he'd have definitely fought here. And when you think his career went on 33 years while we're talking about Derek, he came back and he came back and he came back in his career. And it was this announcement yesterday was being teased in a very big way. I really like Lawrence Okoli and Richard Riakporhe at heavyweight, by the way. That's a lot of fun. And obviously there was a bit of heat and a little bit of tension yesterday when Lawrence Okoli and Dillian Whyte were near each other, because that's a fight that's going to happen sometime soon as well, I think. Because that puts bums on seats as well, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I did the face-off yesterday for Okoli versus Riakporhe. They asked me to sit down between the two, so I thought, okay, why not? And obviously they had that incident at the cinema a couple of years ago where they had a bit of a push and a pull. One thing was apparent though. Lawrence Okoli is enormous.
He is.
And Richard Riakporhe, yes, Richard was struggling at cruiserweight, but he almost should have made that jump to Bridger. Like the size difference between the two was just there to see. There must have been a stone and a half just between them, which, look, who knows how it plays out on fight night, but Lawrence is a lot bigger. And I asked both of them, I said, would this fight have been different at cruiserweight? And Lawrence was quite honest. He said, possibly. I was killing myself to get down to the cruiserweight limit. And Richard said maybe as well. So it almost seems as though it swung a little bit. Lawrence is now just a fully fledged heavyweight. Obviously, he's trying to find his perfect size. And Richard's going to have to see what he can do. But yeah, I love that fight. I think that's an incredible one. What do you make of Dillian Whyte, Joe Joyce? So, I asked that because
say as well on those two. Did you go further into the Madonna jibes or not when you had them face to face?
I didn't, but Lawrence did himself.
Right.
Lawrence at the press conference went in because Lawrence said, "What did he say?" He said they had that little squabble, if you like, at the cinema, and it was because he went up to Richard and said, "Madonna's a bit too old for you," and that kicked it all off. That's what kicked it all off, supposedly. But yeah, that's good. That's co-main event again, an interesting fight. Dillian Whyte, Joe Joyce is intriguing. I called it loser leaves town. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful to both, but I don't see where they go in terms of big fights. They'll still hang around, but in terms of big fights, whoever loses this, it's kind of a long way back.
Well, I think as Dillian pointed out, and it was great to see him on Saturday night, and I spoke to him. I think, as he pointed out, when you're in the heavyweight division and you're a name, you can lose one, you can lose two, you can lose three, and there's still fights out there for you. And sometimes we're obsessed with the ladder and the snakes and ladders at the moment, that you slide down the snake if you lose and you climb the ladder. Neither of them, because I was involved with the Ring magazine ratings at the weekend, and there was an argument about after that performance, about bringing Chisora into to number 10 or bringing him into the top 10. Yeah, well, you know, based on what he did against Wallin and how he performed, then maybe he merited that, you know. But I think Dillian Whyte and Joyce, if they look fantastic against one or the other, or one or the other looks fantastic, people will start to talk about them as getting to that close to that top 10 position. At the moment, getting into the top 10 in the heavyweight division means that, you know, and you're not going to get a world title shot straight away, because you've got Fury's going to come back at some point. And I spoke to Spencer Brown yesterday as well, by the way. And Fury's starting to do things again. He's going to do something with UNICEF coming up. He's going to go on tour and on a talking tour. All that's a good sign that he wants to come back. Joshua's up there. Usyk's waiting for his next thing. Parker and Dubois go next week. Kabayel and Zhang go next week. Bakoli and Afia Jegberg going to have a big scrap. There's the division. There it is. That's all of it. And then you've got Whyte and Joyce hovering, looking to get into that Riyadh season. A fantastic victory for them will get them on a big Riyadh season card.
Yeah, but what does a loss do?
It sends you towards Derek Chisora, I think.
No, it can't. It can't. Chisora can't beat Otto Wallin and then all of a sudden fight the loser.
Well, if it's Dillian, it could be Dillian. I think it's a tough fight for both men.
Yeah, it is.
This fight, but I think it's tougher for Dillian. I think.
Oh, interesting. Okay, interesting.
But
yeah, I mean, if we're honest, yeah, Dillian's last performance against Ebenezer Tete didn't sort of fill us with confidence that the Dillian that we remember from, I don't know, Derek Chisora, Joseph Parker performances is still there. He needs a performance. I think he knows this as well. I spoke to him and he understands the importance of this one. He's not a spring chicken. What is Dillian? 38, I'm going to say? 37, 38?
36.
36. So he needs a good performance. But in saying that, I mean, both of those guys, and they pointed this out to me yesterday. I mean, the IBF title has been fought between guys they both beat a few years ago. So, as you say, a couple of wins and you're right back in there. I just don't know if that's still in Joe Joyce. I don't know if it still is after his last performance. Joe's got a fight in March as well, which is weird. He's got an interim fight before he fights Dillian White, which I think is a bit risky. But yeah, March 1st, I think it is.
That.
Yeah. I asked him, why are you doing this? Like, why risk it? And he's like, because he just needs to have a fight. And I was like, okay.
Patrick Corte in Bournemouth.
There you go. Yeah. Which is, I think, I don't know, considering anything could happen, a cut, I don't know, an injury, I think it's a bit risky when you've got this bigger fight on the horizon. But yeah, that's happening. But what do you make of the other stuff that Frank's doing? Josh Taylor versus Echo Usman. I mean, that's insane, that one. Echo going up to Scotland, Josh's first fight at 147. I love that. And I'm so happy for Echo, who's been fighting on this British level for so many years. Finally gets a big shot main event, and he takes on a former undisputed champion.
Yeah, it's a great card, that. And by the way, just to finish off on the April 5th Carp live card, 4 heavyweight fights on that card as well, with David Adelaide and Jamie TKV. That'll be a fun fight. And also Dalip Vittori, who was there on Saturday night. I don't know if he was there on Monday. He's so much bigger when you meet him in the flesh. He is a big unit.
Dude, I couldn't believe it. I'm so happy you mentioned that. Thank you for bringing it up. He came into the studio. I had Fabio Wardley in the studio with me, who himself is big. And we got Delicious in. And even Fabio looked up at him like, geez, you're a big boy.
He is.
And when another heavyweight says that to another heavyweight, you know the heavyweight's big. Yeah. And he mentioned the fact...
What a great time, Eddie, to be involved.
Oh, dude.
It's so amazing.
He mentioned as well that, you know, he did try out for the WWE. They called him up to go to the Performance Institute. And he's like, you know, of course, why am I going to turn that down? And he learned a lot from there. And I just wonder... You know, obviously they teach as well, you know, about your mic skills, don't they? And how to kind of speak on the mic. And he's got the look, he's got the frame. If he can speak on the mic as well, there's a bit of a star there. So yeah, looking forward to his journey.
And he got robbed at the Olympics as well, which is always a strong narrative. Yeah, and sorry to dive back to that card, but I just think it's going to be a lot of fun. April the 5th. In between. May the 10th, Anthony Kakache and Lee Wood as well in Nottingham. That'll be a fun night. That'll be banging in there, and obviously we'll be there. And like you say, Josh Taylor, kind of the forgotten man for a little bit, as people were talking about Dalton Smith and Adam Azim and Jack Catterall, obviously, who fights this weekend against Arnold Barboza. You know, it's great to see Josh Taylor back, and Echo Esserman's a physical presence. He's not fought at the level that Josh Taylor has, obviously, on that amazing run when he became undisputed champion towards the in the time of lockdown, in the time of the coronavirus pandemic. But you know, the fact that Josh Taylor's back is good. We'll know by the end of the weekend about Jack Catterall, who's 31-1, although he's really 31-0, like Barboza's 31-0, and he's got victories over Jose Benavidez and others. Barboza's not a big puncher, but I'm assuming you're up there this weekend for that one as well.
I am up there for this one. Again, another final eliminator. I think they hoped that Teofimo Lopez would have vacated his belt. There's a lot of talk about Teofimo jumping up to 147, but he hasn't. So yeah, a final eliminator, but good fight. Both of them coming off good wins. Barboza beating Jose Ramirez last time out, and Catterall obviously coming through his victory as well. So against Regis Prograis. So look, both good fighters. 140 division is good. Obviously, Josh now no longer at the 147 division. Sorry, 140 division now at 147. So A lot of things going on with Queensberry, a lot of things going on with Matchroom. This is going to be a very busy next few months for both. All right, up next, we're going to discuss a crazy week last week, which ended in Canelo Alvarez signing the biggest deal in boxing history. Welcome back. You're listening to Final Extra on talkSPORT 2. Ade Oladipo, the great Gareth Ade Davies. All right, last week, we recorded the show, as we always do, on a Tuesday morning. And as we recorded last week, Canelo versus Crawford was done. I almost feel like this show should be a daily thing because we could have kept you up to speed as to what happened. Let me kind of give you a quick rundown of what happened. So on Tuesday, as we recorded, Ring Magazine, obviously now owned by His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, reported that Canelo versus Crawford was done. On Wednesday, we heard murmurings of Jake Paul. Murmurings. These murmurings and whispers became louder and louder and louder. On Thursday, we heard that Jake Paul versus Canelo was close to being done. I mean, it was literally, for a football analogy, we were in the 90th minute and we were in injury time. On Thursday evening, we found out that Jake Paul and Canelo is now off. Turkey had got involved and Canelo had signed a 4-fight deal and will be fighting in Riyadh in May. And then Canelo versus Crawford will happen in September. Wow. That was a crazy 96 hours, none of which I've seen before, having covered the sport for only a few years.
Incredible diplomacy, incredible way that Turki Al-Sheikh flushed out the Jake Paul Canelo scenario, and he even went online and explained it all, which was fascinating, and kind of saying, honestly, I'm a gangster. I'm not a gangster. I don't mean it.
A lion. Did he say a lion?
Yeah, the lion. Yeah, I'm a lion here, and you know what he did was he wasn't gonna be half played by Canelo being able to have that May fight with Jake Paul. But wasn't I telling you all that was going to happen? The Jake Paul fight with Canelo, and people were poo-pooing it at one point that fight wouldn't happen, but they were serious about it. But the problem would have been Canelo would have had to play the game against Jake Paul, and we don't want one of our pound-for-pound kings going in against, this is where I draw the line, against a misfits guy who's got a bit better as a boxer and having to play the game, because Canelo would have had to play the game, Eddie.
What do you mean play the game? As in carry him?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That's what I think would have happened. There may not be a contract to say that you've got to play the game, but there's a game being played, you know. Jake Paul and Canelo inhabit completely different orbits in terms of what they are. You know, Canelo is a modern great. Jake Paul's trying to be a boxer, but is a brilliant marketeer. And after the Mike Tyson fight, this was one of the few names that would resonate. I think the way Turkey dealt with it was extraordinary. And I think what we've now got, I mean, he even played Canelo to a certain extent, didn't he? He said, look, if this is going to happen, we want you for 4 proper fights, even though I think, whether you agree with me or not, I think May is going to be Bruno Saras. That's what
William Skull.
Who?
William Skull, the IBF
will be
champion.
William Skull, will it? Okay.
Yeah,
that's good. That's good because he's managed to get hold of a belt. He deserves a shot at Canelo. It could go all awry. We know that it's going to be Canelo and Terence Crawford in Vegas in September, and what a blockbuster that's going to be. That's an all-time big one for me. It's an all-time big fight. And maybe next year, if Hamza Shiraz beats Carlos Adames next week, we get Hamza Shiraz against Canelo at super middleweight.
Yeah, that's the plan, right? I mean, he's kind of outlined his 4-fight plan, and he's got Skull will be the first one, Crawford in as you say, in September, and then the one in February. And it's weird that he's done February as opposed to Canelo's usual September, May, but he's wrote February down.
February to May, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, okay. And then he's wrote Dimitri Bivol or Hamza Shiraz or Chris Eubank Jr. So there's a lot going on there and a lot of plans. And then the next one's still kind of to be announced. I think the biggest takeaway here, and I think you mentioned it, is that Canelo was going to fight Jake Paul. And I think that's, yes, what Turkey's done is magnificent, and we get to see the generational fight between Canelo and Crawford. But Canelo they were that close to fighting Jake Paul. I mean, it was done. Signatures were on contracts, and they were ready to go. And there's a part of me that's somewhat disappointed we ain't going to see it. But now you said that Canelo would about to have played the game. I'm happy I don't see it, because I wanted to see Canelo actually go in there at 190 pounds and show what a real live pound for pound boxer can do to someone that is just tipped their toes into the sport of boxing. Because I think Canelo could have destroyed him if he was allowed to in a couple of minutes.
Oh, no question.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of that fight happening it's the Jake Paul show, isn't it? With Canelo, people watching. It would have done massive numbers again.
Massive
numbers. You know,
how many numbers on pay-per-view? Original pay-per-view, old school HBO. What kind of numbers does that do on pay-per-view, Canelo, Jake Paul?
3 million, 3.5 million, maybe more. It's up there.
Wow.
It's a $500 million fight. It's a $500 million fight. And one of the things that we need to consider now is, I know that Turkey Al-Sheikh brilliantly wanted to reduce the pay-per-view rates to $20 in the States, or £20. They might not be able to do that for Crawford and Canelo, because I'm sure they're both getting enormous sums for doing it. I think I'd love to see it in the Raiders Stadium as well, so we get an 80,000 audience rather than T-Mobile or MGM, so that it makes economic sense for the fight, because that's a really big fight in terms of pay-per-view, but maybe not as big a pay-per-view as Jake Paul and Canelo, if it was pure
it's a good
pay-per-view
point.
terms.
It's a good point. American, what's America? $80 to $100 usually on a big pay-per-view.
I think it's got to be for this one.
Yeah. But then, as you say, it kind of goes against what he's preached recently about bringing the pay-per-view price down. But then this is such a big fight. You almost will lose out on revenue. You'll leave money on the floor.
Except that's
if you
what I'm
don't
saying.
put
There
it
needs
to 80
to be
to 100.
So it needs to be a big stadium, and it needs to be a bigger cost, kind of baseline cost for the pay-per-view. Because these two, the 4-fight deal, the linchpin, the jewel in the crown of this 4-fight deal is Crawford and Canelo, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Everything else is good, but this is the one in that 4. I mean, all the other fights being predicted after are just hearsay at the moment, because we have no idea how. I mean, we kind of get how William Skull's going to play out, but no one has any idea how Canelo Crawford is going to play out. Did you see the picture of Crawford weighing in on the scales of the video? He showed us, and he was 186 pounds.
When I saw him in Dubai at Christmas, he was much thicker anyway, and I like the look of him. And he'll lose a little bit of weight, but he'll be good at super middleweight. He'll look strong. But by the way, there's no mention of David Benavidez in all of this, is there?
He's now the fighter that we don't talk about. No one seems to want to step into the ring with him. It's got to be. But on that, actually, I just love the idea of Benavidez versus Beterbiev if Beterbiev gets past Bivol. I think that's frightening. Yeah, I think it's just violent and just scary and everything. And I think Turkey, as I think we've seen, can wave that magic wand and make anything happen. So I can't see how we don't see that. So yeah, what does Jake Paul do next, you think? I know this isn't of much interest to you, Gareth, but what do you think Jake Paul does? He can't get Canelo. Netflix would be banging on the door saying, okay, we need a big one. I mean, there aren't that many options, are there, in terms of someone that ticks every box. So it's a real fight, but it's also a fight the casuals would draw into. I know the name you're going to say. You got that smile on your face. I know who you're going to say. You're going to say the Mystic Mac, aren't you?
No. I'm going to say God. David Benavidez so he spites Canelo.
I don't think Benavidez will do the walk and talk with Jake. I think he'll try and kill him.
I think, but if he's getting 40 million for doing it,
yeah. Would Andre Ward do anything? And would that move the needle at all in America? Because I don't know how big a star Andre Ward is. I mean, will Netflix is that too much of a risk for Jake? Andre Ward, I think, is 40, 41, so he's not Anderson Silva are old, but I don't know if fans get excited about an Andre Ward or a Carl Froch or a Tony Bellew. I don't know if those ones tick any boxes.
It could be the opportunity for Carl Froch to fight him with one hand tied behind his back. You never know,
Yeah. If Carl Froch were to get chinned, and I don't think that would happen, I don't think we'll ever see Carl Froch again.
I did the interview. I did the interview with him in Dubai where he said I wrote the piece out for the Telegraph. I went on his podcast at the time, and he said honestly I'd have to get a one-way ticket to Australia because I don't think I'd ever be able to show my face again.
Ever, ever. Like that'll be it. If done, the YouTube will be cancelled. That'll be it.
47 years old. He's got a bad back. That's what I said to him. Carl, be careful. Do you want me to talk this into existence? Of course, he wants. Be careful what you ask for. Fighting Jake Paul, but yeah.
Age is age. Be careful what you ask for. All right, you're listening to Find It Extra on talkSPORT 2. Up next, we're going to look ahead to this weekend's action. Welcome back. You're listening to Find It Extra on talkSPORT 2. Ade Oladipo, Gareth Ade Davis. As Gareth mentioned, there is a big fight card in Manchester this Saturday, headlined by Jack Catterall versus Arnold Barboza Jr. Two very, very good super lightweights, 140 pounds for you old schools. Jack Catterall coming off a good win against Regis Prograis. Arnold Barboza coming off a good win against Jose Ramirez. So I think two top five guys going at each other with the hopes of their next fight surely being a world title fight. I mean, it should have happened already for Jack, but we'll see what happens. I like this one. I do feel like it maybe has been overshadowed by the Derek Chisora stuff and what's happened with Canelo, Crawford, Jake Paul. But let's not take anything away. It's a very good matchup between two very good fighters.
Look, it's a really good fight. The advantage for Jack Catterall in this fight is that Barboza's not a big puncher. He's beaten some great fighters. He's undefeated in 31, as you've kind of alluded to. And I think the thing is with Catterall, even though he's 31 fights and one loss, that wasn't a loss to Josh Taylor in many of our views. Yeah. He's never been beaten. He's looked good against faded Linares. He looked very good against a Regis Prograis that's over the hill. He avenged his defeat to Josh Taylor. And really, this is the moment where if he looks very impressive, he's got Eddie Hearn, who needs to create some very big fights right now, given everything else that's happening in boxing. And I think if he could get Teo Lopez to fight Jack Catterall over here in the UK, Lopez, they could make enough noise with Lopez to put it on, easily sell out the O2 Arena, in my view, or sell out the Co-op Live if you want to go for the largest indoor arena in Europe now, because it's over 21,000, I think they can get in there, can't they? So that will be it for me. Go for a Teo Lopez fight if he wins this, and I think he will win it, and I think he'll win on points.
Yeah, this puts him in a position where he's mandatory for Teofimo Lopez. I just wonder if Teofimo Lopez would travel. He's always spoken about not wanting to come over to the UK because he doesn't trust our judges. So Jack might have to travel. And I'm not against a challenger traveling for a world title. I mean, it's a world title. It's got to be done the hard way. So I'm not against it at all. I do Rich. Sorry, go on.
Well, with his Honduran background and his relationship with New York, they could easily do that at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah. The big one, the big garden. Yeah. So and then there's like Hitchens is out there, who's obviously been chasing Teofimo Lopez. There are good names. There are good names out there. But look, let's hope that Jack Catterall gets the job done. I think a name like Barboza on your resume opens you up to the American market a bit more as well, because the Americans obviously really know who Barboza is. Reece Bellotti is on this against Michael Gomez Jr. His smile. This fight was supposed to happen a couple of months ago, and at the 11th hour, the 11:59, Michael Gomez Jr. pulled out the fight, said he was injured. Reece Bellotti went on a tirade on stage. You were upset with me for not telling him to stop swearing. he lost the plot. They run it back. This one is a lot of bad blood between these two. This is going to be spicy.
Yeah, well, it was October last year. It was the undercard of Jack Catterall and Regis Prograis, wasn't it? So
it was.
And it was the 11th hour, and it was an illness, he said. So we've got to take him on his word. It's a great fight. Reece Bellotti has lost 5, but he's never in a dull fight. Super featherweight, British and Commonwealth, I think it is. He's defending. Yeah. super featherweight title. Rhys Bellotti, an electrician that works on film sets. He's worked on Harry Potter and loads of other movies in his day job. Michael Gomez Jr., the son of Michael Gomez, who was a Mexican-style fighter, and this is what we're going to get in this war. His father, Michael Gomez Sr., born in the back of a car in Navan, Ireland. Michael Gomez Jr. is rough and ready. I think he's lost 1 out of 21, I think it is, something like that. But it's going to be a great fight, this. It's going to be a Mexican-style war at super featherweight. I just think Gomez might have it in him to win the title.
Interesting, because Rhys Bellotti is almost having this Indian summer, isn't he? Where
amazing. He's
got better with age. His last 3 or 4 fights have been incredible. A couple of those he was an underdog in. He just finds a way. Got an engine. He had that weird period. I say weird. He had basically defeats. He had like 3 or 4 defeats back to back to back, and you felt like that was that. Remember when he fought Raymond Ford, Eddie Hearn's back garden? I think he got stopped in a few rounds, and I thought, okay, maybe that's it for him. And all of a sudden, he's put a few wins back together on the bounce, and he's coming into this fight, the form fighter. Honestly, the form fighter, and I'm happy that he's got this fight again because he deserves a co-main event slot, and it's going to be a big fight on Saturday, and the winner could go on to do something. I don't know, might get a crack at someone big in the division.
Both entertaining fighters, so we're going to get, and also there's going to be the heat around them all week. I'm sure Bellotti will have a few things to say, and we haven't really heard from Gomez responding to what Bellotti was saying about him, so we'll get a bit of that back this week because Gomez doesn't take a backward step either.
You do. Okay, so that's Saturday. Again, a good card from the Co-op Live. But make sure you tune into the Zone to watch all of that, to see my face on the screen as well, if you fancy. All right, a sad way to end the show today. We do want to send our condolences to the family of John Cooney, who lost his life after his title fight in Belfast. Look, it's a sobering reminder just how dangerous the sport can be. It's a sport that we love, and you know, Gareth, you've been covering it for 30 years, but it's also a sport that we know is very, very dangerous, and it's moments like this that sort of bring that to the fore, right? Bring it to the surface. Again, and I say this on behalf of all of our listeners, everyone at talkSPORT, just all boxing fans around the world. Massive, massive condolences to the family of John Cooney. Prayers, thoughts, everything. It's a tough sport sometimes.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, Northern Ireland boxer obviously was fighting Nathan Howells a week last Saturday. Was down in the 9th round and he died later from, I think, an intracranial hemorrhage. He fought for his life. He was taken to hospital. He was a young fighter who was fighting for the Boxing Board of Control Celtic super featherweight title. A young man. It's a tragedy, and it does happen in boxing. It's very sad. And, like you say, our thoughts and condolences go to the family. As they said, he fought in the ring, he fought in his life, and he tried to fight for his life when he went to hospital. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to get over the line. And may he rest in peace. May his soul rest in peace.
Indeed. Well said. All right, you've been listening to Find Out Extra on talkSPORT 2. Big thanks, as always, to Gareth. Remember, if you've missed any of this show, you can listen to it as a podcast. You can find it under the Fight Night banner on the talkSPORT app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast from. We'll be back with you next week.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app, and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.